In this lesson, we'll cover what is maltreatment, Rule 11.1, Rule 11.2, Rule 11.4, and Rule 11.5. So what is maltreatment? Maltreatment consists of acts that result in actual or the potential of physical or psychological harm. This includes, but is not limited to, physical, psychological, or sexual actions as detailed below. So here's some descriptions and examples of what maltreatment is. On the physical side, assault or unwanted physical contact, non-contact behavior such as denying hydration or nutrition, providing alcohol to participants under legal age, things like that. Psychological would be verbal assaults or attacks, unwanted physical contact, or denying attention or support. And then the third part there, sexual, unwanted contact of a sexual nature on any part of a person's body, showing sexual videos or images, and unwanted conversation or teasing of sexual nature. Why maltreatment? Hockey Canada believes that every person should have a positive experience in hockey. It's easy to say that harassment, abuse, and discrimination have no place in our game, but we all play a role in making that a reality. We must all expect more from participants, our teammates, and ourselves. No more excuses. So what are the officials' responsibilities around maltreatment? Officials are on the front lines of the culture change to remove maltreatment from hockey. This means that officials have a responsibility to first, apply Section 11 consistently. A challenging emotional game is not an excuse for maltreatment. Secondly, not be a bystander. If you hear something, address it. That may mean assessing a penalty to a player or team official, but it could mean having a difficult conversation with your partner. Finally, follow the established procedures and report any witnessed or alleged incident of maltreatment. So now, this season, as a officiating emphasis, we're going to look at some tools to address maltreatment. So officials' tools. It is important to recognize that maltreatment encompasses a range of unacceptable behaviors. The rules provide officials with different penalty options to address these different behaviors. As part of our discussion of maltreatment, it is important that officials understand the tools at their disposal and when it is appropriate to utilize those tools. In dealing with maltreatment, as with any infraction of the playing rules, officials have a range of tools at their disposal. These include the following. So we can discuss or give a warning to players involved, minor penalty, game misconduct penalty, discussion or warning to the coach of the team, misconduct penalty, or gross misconduct penalty. So looking at those tools, there's a few we're going to focus on. So whatever course of action an official takes, the outcome is never a guarantee. There are potential benefits and challenges to any action. Let's consider the three main options that an official has at their disposal. What are the potential benefits and challenges of each? So the first, we talk about warning to players or coaches. We have the minor penalty option, and then we have our misconduct, game misconduct, or gross misconduct options. So first, reviewing warning to players or coach. Some of the potential benefits. We may gain credit with the team for handling the situation without assessing penalties. We can adjust the tone and format of the conversation. So a quick flyby or something more formal and direct. Warning to specific players or warning to the team. And what are some of the challenges if we're using that option of a warning? So the first one may be frustration from teams may increase because we did not assess penalties. A warning doesn't come with a tangible consequence. We may simply be delaying the need to assess penalties. And a warning doesn't set the standard in the same way as a penalty. So then our next kind of options or tools to look at would be minor penalties. And again, some potential benefits: sets a standard with a clear message that the behavior is unacceptable. We can still escalate further if this behavior continues or increases. And you can assess coincidental penalties to both teams if necessary. Some challenges with the minor penalties may be we may need to penalize that individual later, and we may have both teams feeling aggrieved. The offending team feeling aggrieved by the penalty, while the opposing team feeling that a minor penalty was not sufficient. And then looking at our more severe or serious penalties: misconduct, game misconduct, or gross misconduct. Again, potential benefits: sets a strong standard with a clear message that the behavior is unacceptable. Removes the offending individual either for an extended time with a misconduct or the remainder of the game with a game misconduct or a gross misconduct. And potential challenges: if we set that standard, we must maintain it for the remainder of the game, which could be challenging, could be difficult, but if that's the standard we've set, we want to stay consistent. A good official knows when to utilize each of those tools. In situations involving actual or potential maltreatment infractions, it is crucial that officials utilize the tools that are most appropriate for the situation. Keep these tools in mind as we progress through the module, and consider which tool is the most appropriate for the situation. So now focusing on Rule 11.1. And kind of our tagline or the emphasis for this season is to draw the line so they don't cross it. And with Rule 11.1, criteria for a penalty include but are not limited to challenging or disputing an official's decision in an unsportsmanlike manner, use of derogatory language that may be offensive to any individual, and any behavior intended to entice an opponent into incurring a penalty. So consider the criteria for a penalty under Rule 11.1. As officials, what situations are gray areas where we could simply give a warning, but could also increase our enforcement or unsportsmanlike conduct? So looking at those examples: challenging or disputing an official's decision in an unsportsmanlike manner. Which of those tools would you use to deal with that? Use of derogatory language that may be offensive to any individual. Again, what are the tools that we would want to use in that situation? And any behavior intended to entice an opponent into incurring a penalty. As a black and white rule, there may not be a specific direction on which tool is right for which situation, and a lot of that comes with experience and feel for the game and knowing how to manage the emotions of the game and the players within it. So again, draw the line so they don't cross it. Challenging or disputing an official's decision in an unsportsmanlike manner. So this could be exaggerated gestures, waving arms, banging sticks, or sarcastic applause, continued or repeated exclamations, players crowding or swarming an official. Although it's possible to address these with a warning, officials are encouraged to assess penalties so that these situations do not escalate further. Looking at our next one: use of derogatory language that may be offensive to any individual. So this may be prolonged or persistent insults or trash talking. So for example, refusing to clear the area around the goal, targeting a specific player on multiple stoppages of play, going out of their way to engage in insults or trash talking, skating past the opposing bench or goaltender. And so although it is possible again to address these with a warning, officials are encouraged to assess penalties so that these situations do not escalate further. And our third kind of example of Rule 11.1 and the explanation of what a 11.1 rule is: any behavior intended to entice an opponent into incurring a penalty. And so this might include invading an opposing player's personal space after the whistle, so going cage to cage with an opposing player, or crowding the opposing goaltender, waiting for a reaction or the defending player to retaliate or push or punch a player out of the way. One may be physical actions that do not rise to the level of roughing. So again, an example of pushing with the body, hands, or stick with the intent of enticing an opponent. And again, although possible to address with a warning, officials are encouraged to assess penalties so that these situations do not escalate further. Maltreatment. We need to continue to prioritize the emphasis on maltreatment. The purpose of being involved in hockey is to play hockey. Trash talking, chirping, and insults are not playing hockey, and they make the game feel less welcoming, enjoyable, and safe. We all play a role in changing the culture of the game. Officials have a responsibility to support all members of our sport to realize their full potential in a fair and safe environment, help change the hockey culture and make it more inclusive to all Canadians, and call out discrimination because it's the right thing to do. And again, we want to draw the line so they don't cross it. Moving on to Rule 11.2. So why Rule 11.2? Rule 11.2 covers abusive behavior, which is defined as targeted, persistent, or profane conduct that is intended to intimidate, threaten, belittle, or demean an individual, which is often of personal nature. It is crucial that abusive behavior is penalized, regardless of whether it is directed at an official, a player, or a team official. So looking at kind of the difference of Rule 11.1 versus Rule 11.2, as officials, we must be aware of where unsportsmanlike conduct escalates to abusive behavior. There are three key criteria under this rule. So again, it's targeted and persistent, intimidate, threaten, belittle, demean, and often of personal nature. If a participant's actions meet these criteria, it is abusive behavior and must be penalized. Let's look at each of the criteria for abusive behavior. Targeted or persistent. This may look like a player engaging with one or more opposing players on different occasions throughout the game. This may look like multiple players targeting a particular opposing player. And when we talk about intimidate, threaten, belittle, demean, with this criterion, officials often focus on analyzing the offending player's actions and attempting to determine their exact intent. This is not the official's role. Instead, officials should consider the overall context in which the behavior occurs. What is the purpose of a player trash talking an opponent? This is why we are placing an increased emphasis on Rule 11.1. We want to address unsportsmanlike conduct where possible before it escalates. If participants cross the line, they must be penalized. Let's look at each of the criteria for abusive behavior again, and then the last one of a personal nature. Conduct becomes personal when it is not about the individual's role in this game, but rather about who they are as a person. So think of some examples of this, and likely is directed to possibly kind of their life outside of the game, or relationships outside of the game, or living conditions or status outside of the game. That may be why they're directed and personal of nature towards an opponent. This assumes that the conduct is not discriminatory. So again, a fine line between when it gets to discrimination or just abusive behavior of a personal nature. Now moving on to Rule 11.4. Why Rule 11.4? Rule 11.4 is the cornerstone of the maltreatment emphasis, intended to facilitate the safe and enjoyable participation of every person in the game of hockey. Any participant in the game may be penalized for discrimination, no matter to whom the behavior was directed. Any goaltender, player, or team official who engages in verbal taunts, insults, or intimidation based on discriminatory grounds will be assessed a gross misconduct penalty. So discrimination grounds include the following without limitations of race, national or ethnic origin, skin color or language spoken, religion, faith or beliefs, age, sex, sexual orientation or gender identity or expression, marital or familial status, genetic characteristics, and a disability. Officials' responsibility, reporting. Officials must submit a game incident report for all game misconducts or gross misconducts assessed under Section 11. These must be reported. Officials can also file a game incident report for incidents where they assess a lesser penalty but are unsure if the incident warrants a game misconduct or gross misconduct. So with that, if you're unsure of if it was the right call or the right penalty assessed, filling out a game report is a safe way to go to have it reviewed to make sure we're consistent with applying proper suspensions for actions by all players within the leagues and across the province. For any alleged instance of discrimination that are not witnessed by an on-ice official, officials must follow the established procedures to report the allegation. So to review the official's responsibilities, when an allegation of discriminatory conduct is made and the officials did not witness the incident, follow these 3 steps. Step 1. Confer with your officiating team in the case they witnessed the incident. Any official who witnessed the incident can assess the required gross misconduct penalty. If none of you witnessed the incident, proceed to step 2. So with this, it is good just to touch base, but we do want to make sure that if something is heard, maybe by a lines person, that it is brought to a referee's attention so that penalty can be assessed, and we don't have to chase and review this based on somebody telling us this may have happened. So with step 1, we should get together and confirm what was heard or what was said if we can. But anytime we do hear something, we should be reporting it already beforehand. Step 2, address the allegation with a team official from each team. So again, we're going to both benches, speaking with both teams' coaching staffs, and explaining the situation that was brought to our attention. Explain what was alleged, who was involved, and the potential consequences for this behavior. Again, a good thing to do as an official on the ice in this situation of something being reported to you. Obviously, we didn't call a penalty and we don't have that recorded on the game sheet. But for our reference of when we do submit a game report, maybe pulling out our brawl pad and taking the notes of who reported it, what was said, the time of the game. So we have those details when we do go and fill out our report after the game. Step 3, submit a game incident report detailing what you know about the incident, who was involved, what was alleged to have been said or done, what did you observe. Only speak to what you know, but be thorough. So, Rule 11.4, we must continue to strive for consistency in the application of Rule 11.4. While certain words or phrases are generally understood to be unacceptable in any circumstance, there is a great deal of language that exists in a gray area. Our application of the Rule 11.4 cannot be based on personal preference or sensibilities. If there is any doubt regarding the nature of a comment or behavior, officials should strictly apply the following test. So the first question, was the behavior done in a negative context with the intent to taunt, insult, or intimidate another person? And question 2, was the nature of the insult based on discriminatory grounds as defined by Rule 11.4? And that's going back to our list of all the criteria for 11.4. If the answer to both questions are yes, then a gross misconduct penalty under Rule 11.4 must be assessed. So there's been some confusion with the application of this test, and it's critical that we all understand this process. Let's break this down a little further. So question 1, was the comment made in a negative context with the intent to taunt, insult, or intimidate another person? Note that question 1 is not asking officials to determine if the behavior was intended to be discriminatory. This is an impossible determination for officials to make. Question 1 simply requires officials to determine whether the behavior was done in a negative context, as a taunt, insult, or a form of intimidation. And question 2, was the nature of the behavior based on discriminatory grounds? And similarly, with question 2, it is not asking officials to judge discriminatory intent on the part of the offending player. It's simply asking whether the nature of the behavior is based on discriminatory grounds as defined by Rule 11.4. It is important that we answer these questions separately following the criteria. If the answer to both is yes, then a gross misconduct penalty must be assessed. So let's take a closer look at the discriminatory grounds that are covered under Rule 11.4 to ensure that we understand their application. So again, there's our list of race, national or ethnic origin, skin color or language spoken, religion, faith or beliefs, age, sex, sexual orientation or gender identity or expression, marital or familial status, genetic characteristics, disability. Consider not only comments or insults, but also other forms of taunting or intimidation based upon these grounds. Remember our guiding principle. Insults, taunts, or intimidation that are based on or refer to these grounds are unacceptable. Moving on to Rule 11.5. Rule 11.5C. And so the criteria for a match penalty have not changed, but in 23-24, the wording of the criteria was updated. So the first part, conducts themselves in such a way that physically threatens or intimidates an official without making physical contact. 2, deliberately applies force to an official with a minimal to moderate degree of violence without causing injury. Or 3, deliberately applies physical force to an official with a high degree of violence or causes injury to an official by way of any intentional contact. Rule 11.5E. Additionally, there was a new option for a game misconduct penalty introduced last season under this rule, but it is only to be used under specific circumstances. Do not substitute game misconducts for match penalties under Rule 11.5 if it does not meet this criteria. A game misconduct will be assessed to any player or team official who, in the course of attempting to continue or continuing to participate in a gathering or altercation, accidentally applies physical force to an official. So we do have a couple videos to review. And so the referee uses a reasonable level of physical contact to separate the player from the scrum. The player deliberately raises their stick up to the height of the referee's head. While there is not intent to strike the referee, there is intent to physically threaten or intimidate. a match penalty would be assessed in this situation. The next one, you can see the linesperson got off the wall in the lane of the player going back to retrieve the puck. Player is attempting to control a loose puck. The linesperson is off the boards and the player is trying to take the same lane. There is no intent to striking the official or follow through, so we would have no penalty in this situation. The next one, what can we observe from this video? So you can see the players pushing at the side of the net. Linesperson gets in between, and a push on the linesperson as they're trying to separate the players. The linesperson steps in between the two players, but has not yet separated them. Blue number 26 attempts to push white number 17, and as a result knocks the linesperson backwards and off balance. There's no intent to striking the linesperson, but we would have a game misconduct penalty in this situation. So, in conclusion of our maltreatment module, the purpose of being involved in hockey is to play hockey. Trash talking, chirping, and insults are not playing hockey, and they make the game feel less welcoming and less safe. We all play a role in changing the culture of the game. Officials must work hand in hand with administrators, coaches, parents, and players. Officials have a responsibility to support all members of our sport to realize their full potential in a fair and safe environment, help change the hockey culture and make it more inclusive to all Canadians, and call out discrimination because it's the right thing to do. No more excuses. It is not part of the game. And finally, it's time to change the culture, and we want to remember to draw the line so they don't